Today is a very exciting day for the 3D animation community because for the first time we get to animate Toy Story characters at home. Now, technically it's not the actual models and rigs that they used at the studio making the movies, but it's pretty close. Pixar uses their own proprietary software, meaning that they coded it themselves. It exists only at Pixar, you can't get it anywhere else. That software is called Presto, and the models and rigs that exist within it cannot be transferred to any other software. Well, I mean, you couldn't just download it and take it, but somebody did the next best thing, heading over to agora.community. If you haven't seen the interview about Agora Community, there's a link up here that you can click on to watch it. We talk a lot about a new animation education learning platform, and that's where these rigs come from. So heading over to their website, which will be linked below, you can see if you click on the assets page, once you make an account, if you don't already have one, it's free, just jump in. There's a Forky, Woody, Buzz Lightyear, Rex, and Andy's room rig, but you can download the rigs here for free. Now in this video, as I kind of dig into these rigs, I'm going to show some tips and tricks that if you are going to work with these, there's some stuff that you may want to know either when you're first starting or as you work with these characters or with the set. So keep watching, and I will also put chapter markers down below if you want to skip to Woody, Buzz, things like that. And in case you're new here, hi, I'm Sir Wade. I do a ton of animation stuff here on the channel for Maya animators, Blender animators, really just for anybody who's interested in art and animation in the animation industry. And if that sounds interesting to you, hit that subscribe button down below. It's free and you can always change your mind later. And if you have any questions and you want to talk about it live, a link to my Twitch stream down below where I'm live twice a week. If you don't already know, this site is designed to be an animation resource, a hub of knowledge and information for free for anybody to watch and learn animation. There's a ton of curated content that is all super high quality from people who know what they're talking about. Some of my videos are on the platform, as well as some other content creators for animation, and plenty of people who don't actually make YouTube videos have content on here as well. And of course, there is the asset section, which has all of the rigs that we're downloading today. And possibly the coolest thing about it is the reviews. If you'd like to get your work reviewed, for example, if you make something cool with the Toy Story characters and you want to have someone from the industry give you feedback on it, you can book a review right on the site. They're in 15-minute intervals. You can always go higher. You can do different kinds, and all the information's on the page. I'm one of the reviewers, so if you want me to review it, there's that. But there's plenty of other amazingly talented artists on there to give you feedback on your work. And if you're curious as to whether or not you actually want to do that, there is a section where you can watch some of the animation reviews to sample the goods and see which reviewer would be right for you. Now, obviously, when you download these files, make sure you actually unzip them. I always get that question in my videos, like, it's not opening, I can't do anything with the file. Make sure you unzip it from the folder before you try to do anything with it. Now, I'll start off with the set. When you bring in the Toy Story Andy's Room set for the first time, it might not have any textures, and that's because you need to reconnect the textures and just tell your computer where to find the file. Easiest way is to go to Window, General Editors, File Path Editor, and then from there, just pick the category that has all the texture files missing, repath it to where you unzip the folder. With that, you can turn on the textures and you can also turn on the lighting. This little thing will allow you to control the light, so that'll change the light angle, and you can also adjust the intensity. Now notice here it's actually changing how bright or dim the sunlight from the window is coming in, but you may not see that right at first because to enable shadows in your viewport, you need to go to Lighting, Shadows. And I have a video on this kind of stuff, but if you want to make your viewport look like a render and not actually have to render, really just turn on anti-aliasing, and if you want ambient occlusion, and you can just play blast straight from here without ever having to render, and it will look great. But as far as Andy's room is concerned, everything in here can move, which is super cool. The drawers open, the chair moves. If you wanted to, you could adjust the pivot of things like the chair. That way, if a character starts to like spin it from a certain spot, you have control over that, so don't forget the ability to change the pivot. But it's super cool. Every single book in here, you could pull out and animate all these different things. You have a lot of options, so if you have a character climb up this thing and try to jump up here to, you know, rescue Wheezy from a yard sale, have things like the board games kind of flex when Woody puts his weight on it, if Woody's the one climbing up, like in the movie, and so on. Looks like the door opens to the black emptiness of your soul. The bed has some really nice fabric detail in there. You can't really tell once it's got all the lighting effects and stuff, but it's gonna look really nice. If you have a character walking on the bed, you're gonna wanna do a little bit of CFX work, is taking little footsteps on the bed. It should hopefully be pushing in the cloth, but that's a topic for another day. The only other thing to talk about in the room file itself is this little camera rig built in. So there is a toys cam at floor level. It's locked by default, so you don't accidentally move it. But it looks like it's designed for you to see where the camera is. You can't actually animate the camera from this. You have a main controller here, and then you have this other one which controls the angle of the camera. So you could animate it manually, constrain it to a character, put it on a track. I have a video on camera stuff, so, you know, go crazy. Except, don't go crazy. I take that back. I'm not gonna say that when it comes to cameras. Don't go crazy with the camera. When in doubt, just leave the camera in place. This video will talk about it, but like, don't go crazy with the camera. You'll make people sick and they won't be able to watch your stuff. Now, probably the most important thing I'd recommend after doing all this with your room scene, just save this as a new copy of the file. So just go to File, Save As, and where it's, you know, Publish version 1, change this to Custom version 1. That way you don't have to do all this stuff the next time you open the file if you're not set to this project. And the file just automatically knows where to look for its textures and your display layers are in there and all that kind of stuff. It'll make it easier for next time. But let's bring in some characters, starting with the OG. Let's get Woody. A reminder to reference your characters and not import the characters. This is version, I think, like 0.1 of the characters. So if any changes are made, if any fixes are done to these files, you want to be able to easily swap copies of the rig. So referencing it allows you to do that without losing your animation data. If you have imported your rig, you then have to like take all the animation data, copy, export it, and then bring it back to another rig. It's a mess. Just reference your characters and everything else. Now, same process for all the characters will apply if you haven't set your project to one of their directories. All the characters will come in blank. You're gonna have to do all the texture stuff yourself. So I'm not gonna keep showing it, just know it's going to happen. Looks like Woody's ground is just a little bit below the actual floor planes. How cool is that? That is a great looking rig. While this isn't the actual one like from Pixar Animation Studios, it's probably really close because I believe the original model came from the Kingdom Hearts 3 game and then was cleaned up and rigged. And if that's true, then that means that this design was approved by Pixar to be close enough to be in the game. All right, main root control. You can turn on a visibility control. That's that eye. We'll touch that in a second. Settings control, the cog, pivot 0. You can change Woody to follow pivot 0. So if you turn this on and then move it, it looks like it's going to move Woody. Interesting. So it's a control that can exist even above the global control. Very interesting. There is a rig scale option, so if you want to go crazy and make Woody life size, you can do it. Now there's a lot of stuff in this eyeball control. There is a whole set of visibility controls, which if I take all of these and turn them off, you can see that you can turn on and off different parts of the rig. And it looks like the settings cog has some other stuff. Not really sure what these do. I can see that you can turn the geometry off here if you wanted to for some reason. You can select the geometry by default, so probably the best way to do this is to go to Geo Lock. Yeah, and now you can't accidentally grab the geometry, so I would do that as well. Technically, you could have put it in a display layer, which is what I normally do, but it's built into the rig, so that's an option as well. IK feet, you have your roll control there. You have a lock mid. What that does is it locks the knee as a kind of an IK knee. The good thing there is if you want his knee locked onto something as he's climbing, you can. The problem with it is that you then have to worry about scaling because it'll stretch or squash different pieces of the geometry and it's very easy to go off model, so be careful with that. You also have a spin mid, which looks like just the knee turning type of thing. Center bank is that roll with the foot. Center roll rolls from the middle of the foot. Spin front is your toe. Spin outer is that kind of left edge of his shoe here. Spin inner is probably the opposite. Spin ball and spin back. I feel like you can kind of get the gist of what these are doing. And then bank if you need to just kind of twist his foot. Okay, then you also have controls here you can use to move his foot. That one does the top half. Oh, that's nice. That is a nice one, just to do the top half of the foot. So you have that option as well. That's cool. Now, these feet options all work great if Woody's, running around like he does, but if it gets picked up or something, you don't want to have, the body and the feet all in IK and you try to animate them all together. That's a pain. So the settings hog back here looks like, yep, FK IK. So you can switch him to FK limbs. Then if he gets picked up, you can have his legs just kind of flail and flop around like that. So there's your FK IK switch. Looks like they're not quite in the exact same spot by default. I bet they'll change that for the next version of this rig. But there's also a sub visibility. Ooh, this looks like Benbo's. So if you need him to have like wiggly legs, you have a little bit of interesting texture stuff here, but if you need him to have a certain kind of curve, looks like this will allow you to do it. You can't push it too far with those boots, but if you need a little bit more noodle arm to push those poses and exaggerate those shapes, you have these kind of sub controls hidden in there. Okay, middle control. So this is his body. Rig is a little heavy, I'll say that. So if you're on like an older laptop, it might be a little rough. Let's see, you do have an FK and an IK spine. So this is your IK spine. And then there's his little like hip control. So you can control the body that way, or you can switch it to FK, which is more rotation based. Interesting, there's more of these pivots in here. And then you can, looks like you could probably lock him to the cog pivots. I'd be interested to see how other people use that, but you've got these different pivots so you can lock Woody to use those instead if you wanted, or something. You can animate his little sheriff's badge, so that's cool. This looks like his FK arm and shoulder. I don't know if he has like a shoulder exactly. Maybe you have to translate. Does he have a shoulder? I don't see a shoulder. That looks like his collar. Oops, let me switch that to FK. Okay, so now I have the clavicle. So I guess technically that would be his shoulder, and then this would be his arm. So if you needed him to shrug, I guess you'd push this up. Maybe move it like that. Technically you can even scale it if you need. Keep in mind with Woody's elbows, it looks like you can see how it's supposed to bend. It bends like that. And technically you could twist this. You can cheat it, obviously. It looks like his arm also has the same thing. So if you need those newly wiggly arms, you can use this as well. Ooh, okay, so the fingers have, you know, your regular FK, but there's actually this little settings cog. You can turn them to IK. Oh, that's awesome. So that means if you place the fingers down and then Woody moves his hand, okay, by default they're just set to be hand space IK, and then this is how you would angle them. But if you come in here for the fingers, you can actually change the space. So maybe the fingers follow his arm, which is gonna mean we need to move this to not, ooh, it looks so weird. There we go. So you can see the hand doesn't affect it. So you can set what the fingers actually follow. Play around with this and see what you've got. Looks like the left clavicle is the thing that if I moved this, ooh, that's interesting. You can set the fingers just to be locked in place. That's super awesome. And if you don't need it, then you just set these back to be their own, to just be set to themselves, or not even have them IK in the first place, and then you're back to normal fingers like you used to. So you have some cloth controls to mess with intersections. Looks like he's got a few neck controls, which is good because he does have kind of a long neck. Now as far as his head, we've got a hat, so that can come off. And it's actually really cool. Looks like there's like a main hat animation control. So if you had him jump, like, you know, running and his hat were just kind of flopping on his head, you could use this. Oh, this is just great for like posing. You could just have it, you know, that way you don't have to like try to constrain stuff. It's just easier to move it. Then you can change the space. So if you don't want it following him in the first place, like here it's attached to his head, but maybe it's just laying on the ground, you could set the space of the hat to something else. To world space, for example, so that when Woody moves, it's just its own object in world space, separate from him. Then there's these pivots that look like you could have him grab his hat with either hand, or tip it forward, tip it back. So there's a way to do it manually or with the controls. That's cool. All right, we have the eye thingy, which you can do the same thing, change the space. So if you want his eyes looking in a specific locked place, you can do that. Ooh, okay. I love the fact that they made these scalable. This is a big deal. This is so rare to see, but when I worked at DreamWorks, there were these controls on the Larrikins rigs, which became Bilby, the short film, and they were able to smear the eyes when they were darting really quickly. They could really cartoonify and push the eyes and the pupils. And that's usually not a possibility because it's like a texture baked onto the eyeball itself. But these, it's actually a separate piece of geometry, so you can have a very scary Woody, or or you can, you know, scale it and do some interesting stuff and just don't do it just to do it, but it's there in case you know how to add that. Brows work just fine. Controls for all the different pieces. Okay, and then there's like a lid piece of geometry. Okay, so this is like a muzzle control? That's interesting. Ooh, careful with those, I definitely want to mess with the cheeks, it looks like, because there's a little bit of, it's looking a little creepy. I don't know if you can push this as far. I mean, if you move a bunch of stuff, I guess if you move the cheeks up, it kind of works. Careful with that. One thing you'll really have to keep in mind if you're going to use these rigs is everybody has seen these rigs in action. Everybody knows what Woody looks like and how he moves and how he acts and how he shows emotion on his face. Same with Buzz. So if you're going to use these characters, make sure you look to the movies as a style guide. You're not copying from the movies because you want to animate your own stuff, but use it not as reference, because you don't use animation as animation reference, but use it as a character guide. That's something that makes these characters kind of hard to animate. This is actually something that I experienced when I was animating Hiccup, when I worked at DreamWorks and I was doing this as a demo, as like a demo reel test shot. One of the hardest things was I couldn't just do whatever I wanted and follow my own reference. I had to also make my acting choices fit within what Hiccup would do as a character, which was kind of there's a level of expectation with these characters of how they move that you have to follow. You can't just do whatever you want, they have to still fit that character's brand of movement, if that makes sense. Be careful or you will make something that is very, very cursed. So please, animate responsibly. Now it looks like there's controls for all the other stuff. There's little props on his hip, his little gun holster. There's even like an IK to these little things. What has happened? Uh-oh. Oh no! It stopped responding. Okay, well, hopefully that's unique to my computer. I encourage you, before you start animating, and after you've saved anything you've been working on, to try this for yourselves and just see if it's a recreatable bug or if it's just something that happened to me. And I feel like Woody pretty much covers the way these rigs are going to work, but I will quickly just run through Buzz, Rex, and Forky to see the differences because I know there are a few. That's interesting, and the Buzz file, there's a little thing over here. Whoa, what the? There's a little thing over here called blob, rotate blah blah, why are you reading this? Is this an Easter egg? Was this meant to be here? I don't know, but it looks like he controls his little Star Command thingy. So I feel like that's gonna get patched in a future version. I don't think that's gonna stay there. I'm not really sure what's going on. I can turn off the visibility, but I feel like you're gonna need it to animate this little thing on his wrist. Huh, okay. Buzz looks like he's got the same thing going on. You'll have to be careful with the face because it looks like it's really easy to kind of get stuck in the cheeks. So be sure to move the cheeks and try to avoid any weird pinching here. I don't know if, I mean, I'm assuming these rigs were made to do acting shots because they have a full face rig, but there's a few things here that I think will probably get some updates in the future. But I see this little arrow. I have a feeling I know what that does. Yeah. That's great. Okay, so Buzz has his little helmet thingy. Okay, so this setting scale on the back looks like it's the wings. Okay, so that closes that. And then those, okay. I wonder if there's a control to move his little laser button if he pushes it. I wonder if there's a way to actually have it push in. It doesn't look like it. Let me check the sub visibility. No, I don't think so. But you can see Buzz has a totally different kind of anatomy than Woody. He has the ball joints for bending and moving versus kind of fabric folds that Woody has in his arms and knees. Now, if you're participating in the Anim Challenge or if you're just gonna use these shots for something on your demo reel, 2 thoughts for you. Number 1, don't copy anything from the movies because then you're just kind of tracing. It's kind of the same idea of, like, you wouldn't put a drawing on your portfolio that you traced in the same way that you wouldn't put an animation that you copied on your demo reel. However, thought number 2, copy a scene from the movie. Not for your demo reel and not for the challenge. Like, don't put it anywhere unless you're just like saying like, oh look, I tried to recreate, and you're very, very clear about your intentions because you don't want to make people think you're plagiarizing. But there's nothing wrong with like pulling up the movie and pulling up the rig and trying to recreate it just to see if you can challenge yourself technically to match the animation to something that a Pixar artist has created. But again, just so that we're clear, not for your demo reel, not for anything you're gonna show people as your animation. You don't get to claim it if you do that because it's not yours. It's someone else's creative idea. So I don't wanna harp on that a little bit, but it's not a bad exercise. But don't get in the habit of just doing that all the time because you need to also develop the skills to come up with your own creative ideas. So, you know, a balance. The Forky rig has a README, so use the Forky rig hashtag, and there are studio library poses for him. That's gonna be really helpful. It has to do all those shapes. So if you wanna kinda get some starting poses, oh wow, he's really, really large, then you can just use the studio library plugin for that. Now I already really like the way that Forky is rigged by comparison. He's got some really interesting differences. So he's not rigged like the other ones. He has, you know, his main control and a scale control. So, you know, here's your body tilt. That's kind of fun. There's a little body squishy thing. Okay, that's great. So you can have him kind of bounce. Little controllers for his popsicle stick feet. Oh, and it's even got Bonnie's name at the bottom. And then this thing you can have slide up and down because he did that in the movie. So that's super cool. You can have it spin around if you need. These are kind of like his shoulders. Looks like you could translate them if you really needed to, but you are gonna get a little bit of weirdness. Probably just use this as the shoulders. But from here you have these things. I really like the way this is done. I don't think I've seen a rig that handles this in this exact way, but I really, really like this. That's great. So you can have a specific shape, you can move the hands and it'll kind of respect that shape. And you kind of have these like finger sections that you can animate, or you can do the specific little bits if you want to just do the pieces. So there's a lot of customization here. I love this. It's kind of a head neck control. So you can use this to move the entire eyebrows. It looks like it will stay on the geometry. That's super cool. So it'll actually kind of move around the spork itself. And this is a great way to think about eyebrows because eyebrows have kind of a connected flow to them. So doing this with Forky will be a lot of fun. Okay, so then we have the googly eyes and you can scale them for effect. That's fun. What does this do? I think that spins it. So then what is this? Okay, so that's how you move. Okay, cool. So this actually stays inside the Google eye. That's great. And you can scale it. Oh, I see. Oh, so if you want to like spin his eyes, you could animate this, but then you have to try and animate it in a circle. You could just spin this and that'll work as well. So you have two different ways of doing the eyes. I love that. Oh! Okay, I really like this rigger. Whoever rigged this, actually, whoever rigged this, let me find him and give him credit. I don't know how to say your first name. Bousley? Bousley? Boukley? I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I'm not saying it correct. But hey, give this guy a follow. I want to see this number go up, everybody. This is great. Go watch this and get some ideas of how to move the character and how this works. You can see him spin the arms and pop the mouth around. That's great. And the Ace Ventura. Anyways. back to the great job. The reason I freaked out, but look, the geometry is wrapped in controllers. So you can animate these like mouth things. So you can just grab the pieces. Is it the same thing as just grabbing the little sphere? No, it's not. Interesting. Mouth, rib mouth. So you can animate this, and you can do shapes. But you can also use these to further shape it. I wish I saw this in more rigs. That's a great way to do this. Okay, yeah, so where Buzz and Woody are much heavier characters, and rightfully so, they're way more complicated in every way. Forky's a really light rig, so if you are on an old laptop and you're like, ooh, I need something fast that I can just animate like on my laptop at home and whatever, I would recommend maybe trying a Forky shot. You can go a little bit more cartoony, really push, try something fun there. He won't be as heavy on your computer. It won't take as much work for your computer to actually process him. I'll also have a video coming soon in the next couple of weeks on kind of a computer PC building guide if you're gonna buy a new computer or build one. So make sure you're subscribed. And if you're enjoying this video, if this is helpful in any way, please hit the thumbs up. It actually makes a difference with YouTube showing my content to more people. So thank you. What is this? Extra arms. Oh, so if you really want to get specific with the arms, you have even more controllers. Okay, I was wondering if that's super cool. Okay, so there's extra controls for the arms. Oh, there's even more extra controls. So you can get really specific. That's crazy. There's so many levels to that. That's great. An extra mouth. Ooh, look at that. Okay, you can get really dialed in. This is great. So if you are gonna polish a really good Forky shot, you can block out a ton of stuff with just the basic controls that are in there. There's not a lot of controls, but if you need more controls, they're in there. And they're not complicated. Like, it's very intuitive of exactly how they're gonna work, and you just grab them and move them. Forky might be my favorite rig that I've ever reviewed because he's just so simple, and I love these little floating spheres. I like this so much more than the control rings I'm so used to, and obviously he's got some of those, but like, I love this. The only thing I would say is I'd love to be able to kind of move the position of these if necessary, because if I move this here, like, I could cover it. Now, it's not hard, I can just grab it and move it, but at a glance, I might forget it's there. It will show up if I do this. It's like the only thing I can think of is maybe a way to, maybe like a way to just shift it over or something non-destructively. I don't really know if that would work with rigging, maybe not, I don't know. And at first I thought when I opened these characters that if I had picked a rig, it was gonna be Woody or Buzz, but now I kind of think I might wanna do a Forky shot. And not to forget Rex, there is a Rex rig. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on him because I feel like he's kind of covered in all the same way. He looks like he actually has a shoulder control. Whoa, that's cool. So he actually is built like a toy. He actually has a shoulder, has a little like ball joint in there. I kind of love that. So he's actually constructed like a toy. He's got his little side pieces. I think his tail is supposed to have a slice in it. Like, it's supposed to have two pieces? I could be wrong, I don't really remember. That's fun. Okay, so the Rex rig is actually a lot of fun. There's a lot of little fun things you could do comedically with this character. One thing I'll say is, like, maybe don't like stretch him if you want to stay true to the original character. Now it kind of looks like the crocodile from Peter Pan with this. Maybe if you like take these and stretch them out. Yeah, it kind of looks like the crocodile from Peter Pan. Dun, 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 dun. But just keep that in mind if you are going to try and animate Rex. Remember the material he's technically made of. He's a plastic dinosaur. He can't bend and flex like that. So maybe you could do it like over a frame or two for an exaggeration or some kind of smear or something. But if you do have him kind of bend his tail or bend his body or do something like that, it's not going to feel like the Rex we know. Anyways, go forth, animate with these Toy Story rigs, have fun. I hope this video was helpful. Again, a link to Agora community down below where you can grab the rigs for free. You can also check out a bunch of educational content or book reviews if you do some cool work and you want to have people look at your shot. And if you specifically want me to look at your shot, I'm also one of the reviewers on there, and I have my own kind of studio dailies type thing every week where I do kind of group review stuff. That's down on Patreon. But yeah, I cannot wait to see what you guys make with these rigs. Make sure you tell your friends to watch this video as a guide. That way everybody kind of knows how the rigs work and some of those tips and tricks for setting up the environment and things like that. But again, if you have any questions, we can always talk about it live down on my Twitch channel twice a week. Links below for all my links as well as Agora. But anyways, thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.